The Kefir had studied Earth for decades before making their move. Their aquatic civilization had mastered the seas of a dozen worlds, and Earth's vast oceans seemed like the perfect prize. When their sleek bioships descended from the stars and dove beneath the waves, they expected swift victory over what their reconnaissance had deemed a primitive, land-dwelling species. Commander Zeftai of the 3rd Oceanic Fleet watched through the translucent hull of his flagship as schools of Earth's crude metal vessels scattered before their advance. The human surface navy was laughably outdated steel constructs that moved with primitive combustion engines, armed with projectile weapons that seemed better suited for warfare centuries past. Pathetic, Zeftai bubbled to his second-in-command. Their largest vessels barely penetrate 50 meters below the surface. We'll control 90% of their world within a solar rotation. The Kefir ships were marvels of bioengineering living vessels that could adapt their density, navigate crushing depths, and regenerate from damage. Their plasma weapons could boil water into superheated steam, and their sonar disruption fields rendered them nearly invisible to primitive detection systems. Within hours, they had established 17 deep-sea bases across Earth's major ocean basins. The human surface fleets retreated to shallow coastal waters, apparently conceding the depths to their new masters. Zeftai was preparing his victory transmission to the homeworld when the first reports arrived. "Commander," his sensor operators. Chromatophores flicker with confusion. "We're detecting movement, subsurface, but not from our forces." "Elaborate." 37 distinct contacts, moving at depth. They appear to be metal constructs, but they're operating at pressures that should crush any human vessel. Zeftai's confidence wavered. The intelligence reports had mentioned submarines, crude diving vessels used primarily for research and limited warfare. Nothing that should concern a civilization that had conquered the crushing depths of gas giant moons. The first attack came without warning, the USS Virginia, running silent at 800 meters, fired a spread of Mark 48 torpedoes into the alien formation. Captain Sarah Chun had spent 6 hours maneuvering her nuclear submarine into position, using thermal layers and underwater canyons to mask her approach. The torpedoes, each carrying a 650-pound warhead, struck 3 Kefir vessels simultaneously. The aliens' bioships, designed to regenerate from gradual damage, had no defense against the focused explosive force. 2 ships imploded instantly. The third, mortally wounded, began an emergency ascent that would never reach the surface. "Target destroyed," reported the sonar operator. Multiple secondary explosions. "They're breaking apart." Captain Chun allowed herself a grim smile. "Signal to fleet. Pattern Alpha is effective. Begin Phase 2. Across the world's oceans, humanity's submarine fleet emerged from the depths like steel predators. The Russian Akula-class submarines stalked alien formations through Arctic waters. British Astute-class boats prowled the North Atlantic, their nuclear reactors allowing indefinite underwater endurance. Chinese submarines coordinated Wolfpack attacks in the South China Sea. But it wasn't just the military vessels. In a display of human ingenuity that would become legendary, civilian submarines joined the fight. Research vessels like Alvin and Limiting Factor used their advanced diving capabilities to plant mining charges on alien structures. Tourism submarines became impromptu reconnaissance platforms, their civilian crews volunteering for dangerous intelligence-gathering missions. "Commander." Zeftai watched his fleet's tactical display with growing horror. The humans weren't just fighting, they were hunting. Their metal vessels moved through the water with predatory efficiency, appearing from unexpected vectors to deliver devastating attacks before vanishing into thermal layers and underwater terrain features. How are they operating at these depths? He demanded. "Our scans show their vessels are constructed of primitive alloys." His science officer's response chilled him to his bioluminescent core. "Commander, we've been monitoring their communications. They call it pressure hull technology. They've been building vessels to survive the deepest parts of their oceans for over a century. Some of their submarines routinely operate at depths that would challenge our own vessels. The humans had turned their planet's hostile environment into an advantage. While the Kefir had evolved in gentle, warm seas, humanity had been forced to engineer solutions for crushing pressures, corrosive saltwater, and complete darkness. Their submarines weren't just vessels, they were proof of human determination. To master environments that should have been impossible to survive, the USS Seawolf demonstrated this mastery when it intercepted Zephai's flagship at a depth of 2,400 meters. The American submarine had been tracking the alien command vessel for 18 hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Fire tubes 1 through 4, Captain Rodriguez ordered. The spread of torpedoes approached through a seafloor canyon, using the geological features to mask their approach until the final seconds. Zephai's ship detected them too late, the bio-vessel's evasive. Maneuvers were hindered by its own size and the crushing pressure of the deep ocean dot. The explosions lit up the abyss like underwater suns. The Kefir flagship, its bio-hull ruptured. Beyond its regenerative capacity, began its final descent toward the seafloor dot as emergency systems failed around him. Zephai transmitted a final message to the retreating remnants of his fleet. Abort invasion. Repeat, abort invasion. The humans, they made the oceans their domain long before we arrived. We are not the apex predators here. The surviving Kefir vessels fled Earth's waters, carrying with them hard-learned respect for humanity's mastery of the deep. They had expected to find a species limited to the surface, but instead discovered a civilization that had spent generations perfecting the art of underwater warfare. In the weeks that followed, as humanity's submarines patrolled the depths they had reclaimed, marine biologists made a fascinating discovery in the wreckage of alien vessels. The Kefir had evolved in shallow, stable seas with minimal pressure variation. They had conquered other ocean worlds through technological superiority, but had never faced a species that considered the crushing abyss to be just another battlefield. Captain Chun stood on the bridge of the Virginia, as it surfaced in the north Atlantic, watching the sunrise paint the waves gold. Her submarine had accounted for 7 alien vessels during the brief war, a war that humanity won not through superior technology, but through superior adaptation to their world's most hostile environment. The oceans belonged to humanity, and they always had.